Welcome to part B of reptiles, where we're going to shift the focus from turtles to our one species of lizard, which is found in Ontario, and our many snakes. There is only one species of lizard which is found native in Ontario, and that is the five-line skink. Notice, in comparison to some salamanders, which there have been reports of people confusing them, notice that this is a true lizard. Notice there are scales present on the skin. There are also some very unique features which identify this species. One, you can see there are five lines, hence the name, five yellowish or cream-colored stripes that run from the snout all the way down to the back of the sides and the tail. Also, the tail itself is, as you can see, a different color. It's relatively bluish. It has a blue or gray sheen to it. The feet, unlike salamanders as well, has claws, which differentiates itself from the very aquatic nature of the salamanders and amphibians. Notice the size of this animal. It's between 12 to 21 centimeters in length. This particular animal can be found from the Great Lakes around the St. Lawrence. They're usually found in forest openings where there are large outcrops where they tend to be. They will hibernate in groups under rocks or tree stumps and sometimes rotting wood. What's interesting about this particular animal is its predation evasion response. If a predator catches the skink by the tail, it will break off and begin to thrash about, confusing the predator and allowing the skink some time to escape. There are 10 species of snakes that can be found within Ontario. Here is a list of all of them, which we'll be covering in some detail. First, though, we're going to start with some basic snake identification features. Two of the things that we want to look for is head shape. So we're looking for not only the shape, but also the color and the pattern. We're also looking for the scale rows, which is the number of scale rows present. So you can see here the rows of scales you can see present between the two color patterns and bands. And also the location of presence of stripes. What scale row are they on? This will also help in IDing some similar looking snake species. Also important are the actual scale formations. So there are actually two different kinds of scales. Keeled scales, which you can see present on the image on the left, they are scales where you can see kind of a ridge along the central part of the scale. So hence the keel of a ship, or the underside of a ship, is why they're called keeled scales. So you can see that present here. The opposite side, or the other option for scales, are smooth scales with no central ridge, and these generally look quite shiny, as you can see here, and almost wet in appearance, however, being dry in reality. The first group of snakes we're going to talk about are essentially our harmless egg-laying snakes. These are oviparous, so most snakes, around 70%, will lay eggs. The eggs must be incubated or kept warm until the hatchlings are ready to emerge from the shell, and there are three of those species which we would consider to fall in that group: the milk snake, the smooth green snake, and the eastern fox snake. The milk snake, as you can see here, is between 61 to 132 centimeters long, very, very slender, medium-sized snake. It's usually got a Y or a V mark present on the head. It's difficult to see in this image, but it is there. One of the most important identification features, though, is the patterning on the scales. So you can see they've got very apparent brown saddle-like blotches that straddle the back or the backbone of the snake. They alternate with one or two rows of smaller dark blotches, which you can see present on there. So you've got a saddle and then a little bit ventral to that. You've got a little black blotch and then another saddle. So very characteristic patterning present on the milk snake. The milk snake can be found in a variety of habitats, anywhere from rocky outcrops, fields, and forest edges. They are usually around barns where they're preying on small rodents. They will hibernate underground or in the foundations of old buildings, so sometimes during construction they will be there. When threatened, it will vibrate its tail, mimicking a rattling sound. This combined with sort of the blotchy appearance is easily or sometimes mistaken for a rattlesnake, and they're often killed for that. However, they are completely harmless and will not bite or attack. The smooth green snake is, well, hence its name. It has smooth scales as well as being green in color. They are more common in Ontario than you might think. They are hard to find, though, in some places unless you're really looking for them. They are bright green on the upper surface. They are significantly smaller than the milk snake, only between 30 to 66 centimeters. They are the only snake in the area which is entirely bright green on its upper surface. The belly is usually white or pale yellow ivory. This snake is found in a wide variety of habitats, ranging from prairies, meadows, wetlands, wetland edges, fields, forest clearings, open woodlands. It's preying on insects such as caterpillars, spiders, crickets, and other insects. It's a very handy animal to be around, as it will keep a lot of those pest populations in check. The eastern fox snake is a very long relative to the other species that we will study. Snake, it's about 120 to 175 centimeters long. It's got a moderately thick body. It's got a distinct pattern of uniformly dark patches. It looks almost camo in appearance. It's got smooth scales on the sides and moderately keeled on the back. The head is interesting for this animal because it's got a very coppery appearance to it, as you can see present in this image. It's very easy for the snake to blend in and can be hard to find. When comparing this snake to the milk snake, you'll notice that these aren't saddles. So these are dark blotches randomly associated throughout the back of the animal and the sides. They're not in that regular saddle-like pattern with the alternating blotches. It will vibrate its tail when threatened in a defensive pattern, although it is a harmless snake. The eastern fox snake can be found in unforested, usually habitats, prairie, shorelines, savannas, rock barrens, wetlands. They will certainly climb trees and they will eat young birds, small mammals, bird eggs, etc. They will very rarely bite you. They're considered harmless, but they will vibrate their tail, which again, in some cases, has them confused with the Massasauga rattlesnake. Another interesting snake is the gray rat snake. It's the largest snake in Canada and can grow up to 2.5 meters in length. The belly is whitish with a black checkerboard pattern. You can see that present here, alternating white and black. And of course the surface, or the dorsal surface of the snake, is relatively black. Notice that the throat is almost white or cream in color. Our next group of snakes, which are harmless live-bearing snakes, they are what we call ovoviviparous, where the eggs develop and hatch inside the female, therefore the hatchlings are born live. These are the northern water snakes, the queen snake, Decay's brown snake, the red belly snake, the eastern ribbon snake, and of course, likely the most common snake that we will find, the eastern garter snake. The northern water snake is relatively long, 61 to 140 centimeters. Dark colored snake, usually seen near water. They're quite ornery, so that you will tend to find them curled up for warmth inside boat motors and can get very upset, and they certainly will not be pleased with that. They're tan, brown, or charcoal overlaid with some, you can see, kind of faint dark blotches. Not to be confused with the milk snake, both in terms of the size, or the size of the body, which is much stouter, but also the coloration is certainly nowhere near as prominent as it is on the milk snake or even the fox snake. This image really quite reveals the stoutness of the body. So relative to the other snakes, which have been relatively slim-bodied, it's quite stout body, but you can see an almost constricted tail, which is a characteristic of this animal. They're found pretty much anywhere where there is a permanent body of fresh water. They will eat generally fish and amphibians, hunt for prey along the edge of the water. It is an excellent swimmer. It will bask in the open, usually in large groups during the day, and is active, of course, during day and also at night. It is harmless. It doesn't have venom, but it certainly will bite in self-defense, and they can be ornery if they're captured. Their bite will cause mild bleeding because of the snake's saliva contains an anticoagulant which prevents the blood from clotting. So again, they do have a reputation for that, of being relatively ornery when captured or cornered. Decay's brown snake is a very small snake, only 23 to 38 centimeters long, very small brown with a tan color. What's interesting about this snake, as you can see present in this image, is it's got two longitudinal dark brown rows of spots against a lighter background that basically lines its back, sometimes almost forming stripes. So you can see here it's sort of a darker brown on the sides, lighter brown on the top, in almost a flat, sort of row, but on both sides it's bordered by those characteristic darker spots. This animal is primarily nocturnal. It'll eat a variety of food, including insects, slugs, earthworms, etc. If it's threatened, it might flatten itself into the ground and release a very foul-smelling musk if it's handled, and it can be found in very diverse habitats, forests, wetlands, even urban areas and parks it will be found in. The red belly snake, of course, gets its name from the coloration of its belly. Sometimes bright red, but could be orange, pink, or even light yellow in some cases. It's relatively small, as you can see. It's got a very, very narrow neck, slightly stouter body, but one of the features that also characterizes it is the coloration of the surface. So it's anywhere from blue or dark blue to purplish to gray, and it's got two longitudinal stripes that run down its back in a row, as you can see here on the image. Another morph of the snake is, as you can see here, almost a brownish color. So again, you can see the characteristic red belly, not surprising here, bright red color. You can see in this case, though, that the upper surface is actually a brown or almost reddish color. You can still see those two darker stripes, but of course the pigmentation is very different. The red-bellied snake is also nocturnal. It will eat invertebrates, slugs, earthworms, etc., snails, grubs. It will expose its bright red belly or flattening itself if it's exposed to a predator, and it will be found generally in forest edge habitats or fields and meadows with abundant ground cover. So again, it rarely occurs in regions with little forest cover, so when looking for the snake, we're looking for a lot of overland debris. The eastern ribbon snake is in some ways confused with the garter snake, which is similar in some ways but different in others, which we'll attempt to elucidate. It is 46 to 86 centimeters long, very slim-bodied striped snake with a very, very long tail, which we'll see present in the next couple of images. There are three yellow greenish stripes or white stripes that contrast with a very dark brown or black body. Notice in this image, in this individual, the upper surface of the animal is darker and the belly is chocolate brown. Also, one of the things that separates it from the garter snake is that just anterior cranial to the eye, so just before the eye, you can see there's a distinct crescent-shaped spot, which is white, that occurs there. So this is characteristic of this particular animal. If you're handling it, it's something to look for. This species is semi-aquatic and is found almost always close to water. They prey primarily on amphibians, especially frogs, although they will be found also in wetlands and other areas as well, though they won't be found with there's little to no ground cover. They require that in order to facilitate things like salamanders and frogs. The eastern garter snake, a very common snake and probably the most easily recognizable or the most handled snake that we have in Ontario, between 46 to 100 centimeters long and extremely variable in color. Color is a very challenging one. There are many different morphs of this species. There are three light stripes on a background of black, brown, or gray olive. Notice compared to the ribbon snake, the color pattern is different. It's less uniform. In this particular morph, the common morph, it's much more variable. The color is not as clean throughout. It's more mottled in appearance. This is also a garter snake, though it's a melanistic garter snake. It produces too much black pigment, so the stripes are not visible. This particular morph is located around places like Long Point near Lake Erie. It's something to be aware of. Because the snake is so highly variable in color, it is usually, in some cases, misidentified, sometimes as a ribbon snake, sometimes as other types of snakes. It is a generalist in terms of habitat. It can be found in a wide variety of places, anywhere from compost piles in urban areas to wetlands to shrublands to fields, and also in human-dominated areas like parks. It's the most commonly encountered snake, for sure. So when we're identifying a snake or we see a snake, that is definitely one of the most common species we would find. It will eat a variety of food, including frogs, toads, salamanders, earthworms, small fish, and mice. Our next group is the slender rear fang snakes, in which we have one species, the northern ringneck snake. The northern ringneck snake is between 25 to 50 centimeters long. It's very small and dark scaled, shiny, as you can see here, almost looks wet in appearance. The belly is yellow or yellowish orange, but what, of course, hence its name, one of its key features and the easiest one to identify is the fact it's got a bright orange or yellow ring around the neck, hence ringneck snake. This is a nocturnal snake. It will hibernate underground. It will eat things like salamanders, specifically the redback salamander, which they suffocate through constriction, but it will also eat other amphibians, slugs, earthworms, etc. They're found mostly in forested areas, around forest edges and clearings. They're found usually with shallow soil and surface bedrock, or under rocks, logs, or bark. Our next species is the eastern hognose snake, which is part of the robust rear fan snake group. One of the most interesting snakes we have in Ontario is the eastern hognose snake. This is a moderate-sized snake. It's got a very thick body and a very short, flattened tail. Key feature is its upturned snout, hence the hognose. Notice the color is tan to darker brown spots or blotches throughout. One of the interesting things about this snake is its behavior. It's got two strategies. It will either play dead or it will impersonate a more harmful snake by expanding around its throat, which you can sort of see in this picture, these frills, which makes it look more like a cobra or cobra of the north, as what it's sometimes referred to. This snake has very mild venom to immobilize prey. It will swallow its prey, injecting venom through the fangs at the back of its mouth. It cannot inject venom into larger animals unless it's allowed to hold on for some time because, of course, it has to be at the back of the throat. The venom is not dangerous to humans, although sometimes, because of its behavior, it will be killed as thinking it's a rattlesnake. It inhabits fields and forests, usually in very sandy and well-drained soils, into which it burrows. Our last snake, which is certainly the most infamous snake in Ontario, the eastern Massasauga rattlesnake, which is in the pit viper family group. This snake is 47 to 100 centimeters long. It's quite thick-bodied, so similar in some appearances to the eastern hognose snake, although one of the things to notice is that the blotches are much more apparent, and notice it's saddled. This is why sometimes the milk snake is confused with the Massasauga rattlesnake because of these saddles, but notice the contrasting color between the saddles of the milk snake plus the white banding, etc., was much more apparent on the milk snake than it is on the rattlesnake. Also, as well, the thick body should differentiate itself, and of course, the segmented rattle on the tip of its tail, which is the unique feature characteristic for this species. This pit viper is interesting because it can see thermal images of its environment using two heat-sensitive pits between its eyes and its nostrils. Of course, the rattle is key. It's made up of interlocking segments that are adding up one by one when the snake sheds its skin, so 1 to 3 times a year. Generally associated with water, rarely found more than 50 kilometers from the Great Lakes, and it's frequently killed out of sight because of fear, because of its venom. One of the interesting things about venom is that there are only 2 recorded incidents of people dying from an eastern Massasauga rattlesnake in Ontario, and both cases they didn't receive proper treatment after the bite. So most hospitals in rattlesnake country do not have anti-venom, as Massasauga specific anti-venom is not easy to come by, so it is something to be aware of, especially when you're out looking in the field. This rattlesnake venom contains very special enzymes that disrupt the blood flow and prevent blood clotting. So severe internal bleeding causes the death of small animals that the snake eats. After envenomation, the rattlesnake is able to withdraw from the sharp-toothed prey and essentially wait until the venom will kill its prey. Most snake bites have occurred in Ontario because of people deliberately handling them or accidentally stepping on one of these animals. But again, the risk of death is extremely low, only 2 ever recorded within Ontario.